Well, once again, if you have just joined us, a very good morning. Welcome to the LeMieux National Dressage Championships. We're here at Summerford Park. We're live. We've got a bit of an audience out here, but we've got lots of people watching online as well. And of course, don't forget, you can get involved with the conversation. Just pop any questions you have, any comments in that comments box below. And also remember, you can hit the share button as well. Let all your friends know that they can enjoy the action here from the fan zone. Bobby, we had a great interview this morning with Gemma. We've got something a little bit different now, haven't we?
Yes, we do. And so we've got the lovely Dr Diane Fisher with us, which I'm very excited to talk to you about. Like, this is fascinating, everything. So I'll let Adam carry on.
Oh, thank you. Well,
take over.
So Dr. Di, tell us a little bit about your equestrian background, first of all. Let's have that kind of link as to why you're the doctor that's sitting there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started riding when I was young, just like everybody else. And then I sort of moved away from riding, really, sort of later on as a teenager, and then came back to it as soon as I'd finished my medical degree. Most doctors bought a car when they qualified. I bought a 16-2 Irish draft horse and remained poor ever since.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. And just kind of linking again your job with the equestrian industry, tell us about some of the injuries that you see at work.
So I see a vast range of injuries from riders, from when they're riding, from when they're on the ground. I can see major trauma. I've had multiple patients that have been major trauma patients for me for a long period of time. And it's vast. It just depends on how they've done it. For me, it's a bit of a personal crusade about actually trying to make people remember that the worst place we get injured is on the ground, because when we're on the horse, we've got our gloves on, we've got our hats on, you know, people do or do not choose to wear body protection, but it's on the ground. It's always when you least expect it, isn't it? It's like buckle end at the end of a ride, that's when the pigeon arrives, because they're not going to appear when, you know, you would be ready for it. So, and anything and everything.
As a bit of a boy question, tell me about the most gory riding injury you've ever seen. We want blood, we want guts, we want the whole lot.
Think probably one of the worst stuff that I see, you know, putting to one side obviously the life-changing and the life-threatening injuries, but from a gore perspective, it's degloving injuries. So when you don't wear a glove, or like me, you've probably got your rings on and a rope or something catches, and it takes the skin and the tissue off as though you were taking off a pair of gloves. So yeah, definitely degloving for me is one that makes me give the patient a bit of a wince and that's awkward.
It's making me do that even just thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely the worst, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about your riding career at the moment, because you're very involved with paras, and again, not just as a rider either.
No.
As well.
Yeah, I've just been awarded the para rep for North and West, so we will be getting to work to make the Northwesties the best place to be a para, obviously. But yeah, I had quite a nasty accident. It was actually when I was at medical school. I fell off a wall in the Isles of Scilly and sort of smashed up my left leg. So I've needed multiple surgeries since then, and I've also had a transplant into the leg to make me walk. It was expected that I maybe would not be able to walk unaided, so I've rehabbed really well with thanks to sort of Oswestry Hospital, but I've been left with some residual nerve damage, and I was left with a real fear of riding. That was the biggest thing I think that I had to overcome, not so much the physical side. I understand all of that, but it was when I first got back on, and I was absolutely terrified. I have never been so scared of anything in my whole life, and I was a very reasonably accomplished rider with no fear. So, and I obviously with my job I deal with things in a very high pressure environment. It's not sort of an emotion that I feel really. So it was a real surprise.
Where do you think that came from?
I think because physically I felt vulnerable. I didn't have my natural balance that I had before. I just didn't feel that I could bail if I needed to, because I had no control over the leg. And then obviously because you're nervous, you make the horse worse. And yeah, it took a long time to get back to being comfortable sitting on a horse again.
And it's quite the journey. Like, your recovery is remarkable.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
With that journey, I think you should maybe invent a story rather than a fell off a wall. I think it needs to be bigger than that. Like shark attack, maybe?
No, I was drunk.
Oh, okay.
I was drunk.
You left that bit out the first time.
I did leave that bit out because of the GMC, but no, I was. On the Isles of Scilly, there is an amazing pub called the Mermaid, and they make their own beer called Scuppered. Oh. The only thing I will say is if you go beyond 4 pints of Scuppered in an
avoid
evening,
walls.
avoid any walls because they have two sides to them. I thought there was one and stepped off, but there was the other side, which was slightly stupid.
And paras is such a huge part of the sport now, Bobby, isn't it?
It is, and we were mentioning a little bit earlier about the fact now that they're doing the bigger competitions, and you've got the para dressage now with the able-bodied dressage, which I think is absolutely fantastic, because it's really highlighting, that actually there shouldn't not be, And we were talking yesterday to Natasha. She said that 15% of the world is para.
Yeah.
So if that's 15%, if that 15% can see that you all are doing exactly the same, how many of them are going to suddenly feel inspired that they can do it too?
Absolutely. And I think we have very inspirational riders with Natasha, with Sophie, with Georgia, with Lee, and they're very open with their journeys as well. And it's certainly for me, I could see them on their social media, because social media is so important now, and see that actually, do you know what? I'm going to try and grade. It's a hard process. It's not an easy process to go through, but once you're in, it's a big family. But for me, the paras really does demonstrate that dressage really is for everybody. If you want to continue riding, or if you want to start riding and you have some physical challenges, there is really, bar horsepower, nothing stopping you. And British Dressage are very supportive.
And if we can jump back quickly just to saying there that when you were saying to Adam that how nervous you felt sitting on for the first time, okay, you've had an injury which caused the nerves. There's a lot of people that are wanting to ride and overcome their nerves as well, just generally being afraid of them riding. How did you overcome yours? What was your journey to develop that?
Honestly, to start with, a little bit of elderberry vodka in the tack room. I tried that.
Party, isn't
That's how it all started.
There is a theme. I did have a few little bits of elderberry vodka and then thought I was Charlotte and thought I was amazing after that. But no, I actually had to go and have some help. So I did two things. The first thing was I went down to Talent and I rode with them and rode on their schoolmasters and had really intensive support from the team down there. So that I knew I was in a safe pair of hands and I was on safe horses. So you need to pick your horse and pick your support. Don't just, jump back on and think everything will be fine, because if it goes wrong, it's going to be worse. The other help that I had was with mindset. So there's a lady called Tracy Cole who actually trains all of the mindset coaches, the majority for the UK and America. So I had intensive work with her as well. And I think just as I got stronger, doing that physio that we're all really bad at doing, because I did it, because I wanted to. Would I have done it for my normal life? Probably not. I wanted to ride the horse, and it was enough to push me to get as strong as I possibly could.
Which is a really good, valid point there, actually, that, if you're unsure about if you are, para and you want to get into it, how much it can help you get better and get stronger. I can imagine, I had a very bad accident and I got kicked in the face, and it took me a very long time. I had a lot of reconstruction and stuff, so it took me a long time, and I understand that fear. And I'd done the Pony Europeans and everything before that. I had no fear, and all of a sudden, if a horse rears, even now I can't get past that. So it's fascinating how much it always stays in the back of your mind. But the biggest thing for me, so obviously you knew exactly how you sat on the horse, how you distributed your weight before you had the accident. How much was that for your mind to understand, okay, actually I only have more weight down this leg and not the other leg?
It's still quite hard, I think, because it hasn't always been like that. So I might think I'm doing something and I'm not doing anything at all. You think,
your trainer's like,
well, you should be using this leg. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I thought I was, but clearly not. Or I may use it at the wrong time. I think my horses know me very well. They know what I'm asking for. I'm also very lucky that I have support of another rider called Gemma, who comes and schools the horses to make sure they're straight and that I'm not making them unbalanced. But also she will use aids that I use to make sure that they know what I'm asking for. But yeah, it's difficult. I think and as you get stronger, it changes. So it's just a learning curve that goes on and on and on, and you get a little bit better each time.
And just a quick reminder, if you are watching on Facebook Live, if you've got any questions you want to ask Dr. Di, if you've got any strange moles or anything, she is here for you. Stick it in the comments box below. Di,
no pictures, though.
No, yeah, absolutely no pictures. Any strange rashes.
I only have leeches for those sorts of things.
And we touched a little bit about safety earlier, but just thinking about hats in particular, I mean, up until a few years ago, we still had top hats in this sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
BD have done a great job through their pathways and stuff, kind of promoting safety. But hats seem to be something that just keep changing and evolving, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a massively good thing, you know, with all of the sort of personal protective stuff, so with the body protectors as well, now being built into show jackets because people don't really want to see them. I think it's always been, hasn't it, the better you get, the less you need. If you're a really good rider, you don't need a hat on because you're not going to come off. If you're really good, you don't need to be the person that sat there looking like the Michelin Man, and that's something that we kind of need to change the narrative on, really.
Yeah.
I guess from personal experience, and why I've kind of got involved with the social media around it, is because I see people where maybe haven't had a hat on, and they're the hardest, or a body protector or gloves or whatever, and have life-changing injuries. And they're the hardest patients for me because I know that they will always ask me, what if I had? And the answer to that is, yeah, you know, you may be able to walk if you'd have done that, or, you know, you may not be in this situation, or your relative may not be in that situation. And that's the hardest thing for me, is the what if. Because I can't answer that, and I can't make that better. If somebody's done everything they can and done everything properly, you know, let's be honest, bad things happen, you know, and we know our sport is dangerous, but we can mitigate that risk. So it's about just mitigating that risk and making it as safe as possible and enjoying our horses. I am not a fun vampire. I am not perfect. I turn horses out without hats on and gloves on, and I try my very best to be as good as I can be, but I'm not perfect. So we just have to try.
And tell us about your work with Beta as well.
Yeah, so through the sort of social media journey, I got involved with Beta. So I'm now their Chief Medical Officer on a voluntary basis. And yeah, we're just doing loads of work around the summer of safety. And, you know, I sit now on the HAC committees for the European standards and for body protectors. Just started doing some work around getting actually some standards for the airbags and air. And obviously as a sort of major trauma surgeon and doctor, I can give them actually, well, no, that's not right. A lot of things, especially around body protection for riders, has been based on motorcycles. We have a completely different mechanism of injuries. You know, our horses go round in 360, you know, they do different things, we land in a different way. So I think I can add a lot of value in that way.
Can I ask you about air vests? Because
yes.
I think, I mean, they're a great idea. It's probably going to be the future. But I have seen some that have got the sort of canisters built into the front, which is going to be a sort of impact zone if you come off. Are they
What
good?
you mean when they're here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So number one, I would say for that, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you've come off and once it's actually inflated, it's not going to matter where the air canister is. I think the problem is, or what we would say, is that you need to wear a body protector and an air jacket.
Okay.
That's how you get the proper protection. So the way that I normally explain it is if you get in your car, you always put your seatbelt on, don't you? Regardless of the car and regardless of whether the car has airbags. So your body protector is the seatbelt. So you wouldn't get in a car and not put your seatbelt on because there's airbags in the wheel.
Yeah.
So that is the way that they are designed to be worked together. I've been at Beta. There are some, I had to stand in front of the products. There are some products coming from three of the main manufacturers that integrate the two and not in that big. We all know they were big and bulky and horrible to wear. We know that. We've all had to wear them, haven't we?
Yeah.
But they're not like that now. And they can also be integrated into show jackets. I heard a few rumours about some of the sort of clothing brands doing bits that go over the top so that you can still keep it looking like X brand or Y brand. So it just needs to develop.
And it's not so much as well, I think it was quite interesting you were saying we have to change our mindset, we have to be safer. And I think the difficulties from a rider's perspective, I know I should protect myself, but you know, once we get to those higher sort of levels and you're doing the higher movement, it is so difficult to move in them and be with the horse that you feel actually even more vulnerable up there.
Yeah.
And I think now that they're changing them, like you're saying, now they're modernising them, that they're actually sort of softer, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Our mindset will definitely change with that, because it's that moment of feeling like a turtle to now you can still move with your horse.
Yeah, because part of it as well is you want the roll, don't you? So if you come off, a lot of us, we taught to come off and roll, aren't we? So we sort of almost dissipate some of the energy in the roll as well, but it's no good if you're on your back like a cockroach with your arms and legs going, is it? Let's be honest. So, but I can absolutely assure you there's work going on around foam, there's work around, as I say, them being integrated so that it can come off. If you come off, the air will go off if necessary. So it's exciting because it will prevent proper injuries.
And I think mindsets do change, because when we think back to top hats, like we mentioned earlier, there was a a kind of perception that you felt like you'd graduated when you get your top hat?
Well, I remember when I did my first pre-St. George, I did my first advanced 100 and qualified, and the most exciting thing for me was that my mum said to me, if you can get 70% in an advanced 100, I'll buy you a top hat.
Amazing.
And that was always my thing, and I rode in a top hat right up to we couldn't. If you asked me to ride now in a top hat, it would be like driving without a seatbelt. I can't do it. It's not right. It's not safe. But Dad and I used to ride at home with no hat on, and you think now, like, why would you do that?
Well, we did that as children. You know, we were obviously a little bit scampy, and we would get on a horse to go across the field because we couldn't bother to walk. You know, wasn't our horse, but you know, you'd get on it, wouldn't you? But you had no hat on. You had no, you know.
But the thought of doing it now, it doesn't feel right at all, does it?
No.
And all the King's horses. Tell us about that, your social media.
I love all the King's horses. It's so much fun. So I started it because I got a bit cross with my doctors, if I'm honest. Equestrianism is not mainstream, is it? And it's a kind of different language of its own. As riders will kind of all go, oh, I'm fine, get up, brush yourself off. There is that get back on mentality, which is fine if somebody's uninjured. And I educate each set of doctors that come through. And I just got sick of seeing somebody from a riding accident not being taken as seriously, and a lot of it is around the language that you use and being able to explain your injury properly, or the mechanism or how it's happened. Because if you explain the mechanism of coming off a 16.2 horse at canter, having halfway over a cross-country jump, that is worse than a motorcycle accident. And if you were being brought into my hospital, we would have a full trauma team waiting for you. We don't, because they're sat in the corner getting told off because they've got mud on the floor. And why do you ride a horse anyway? So I kind of thought, well, let's educate the riders, because if they come in and describe how they've done it in the correct way, they will automatically trigger those trauma triage tools that we use day to day. And it is working, because I get a lot more now than I did. And I've had some relatively high profile riders from here. So they always come and get me. Diet's a rider. You need to come. So I was like, okay.
So what's your sort of top tips for that? If you have had an injury or your friends had an injury, for kind of describing that, what's your top tip?
Yeah, so I think I would be clear about exactly what's happened. So if you're the person with, and that other person is obviously, if they've got any issues with their conscious level, you need to be describing exactly what happened. So if they don't ask, you need to equate the size of the horse. So, you know, if you tell them your horse was 16.2, they'll have no idea. However, even a fall from standing can actually trigger trauma if you don't kind of like bend at all. So I would equate, you should know what the size of your horse is in meters. So size of horse, what they fell onto, what equipment they were wearing, and bring it with you, because we will look at hats, we'll look at body protectors and air vests, etc. If there is any period of loss of consciousness, because with some of the head injuries you can be knocked out for a little bit and then you come round and you're okay, and then it's normally a few hours down the line as blood collects that you get into trouble. So just a very detailed explanation, and just don't be fobbed off. You know, these are big animals and they're dangerous, so make sure you get that detail across.
Bobby, do you watch Channel 5 at all?
Well, no. Well, yes, I do love the 24 hours A&E. And I was like, come on, Adam.
They're a competitor. We can't watch that one.
I know, but now I know.
I think that's on Channel 4. 24 hours in A&E.
Oh, is it? Okay, well, I watched that, but now...
999.
999. Yes, I'm getting to it.
Yeah.
Right, but now I know the 999. I'm very excited to get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, we have just finished airing our 4th series of 999 Critical Condition. It's an award-winning television series, sort of fly-on-the-wall documentary, as you have never seen them before. It is literally just cameras with us for our shifts, and then obviously it's edited into stories. But there's no explanation unless it's from the doctor that's explaining at the time what we're doing. It's been an experience, and we're just agreeing to the next series, so that's exciting. So hopefully we'll see the crew again, because they're great friends. So,
and how much pressure does that add on? Because obviously you know what you're doing. You've been doing it a lot of years and all that stuff, but you've still got people looking over your shoulder.
So when they first came, it was really weird, because you start almost getting a bit tongue-tied, don't you? I mean, you guys work in TV, so you know, like those first times when they turn it on, you're like, oh, this is awkward. I'm the one that's sworn on TV twice. Oops. But yeah, so at first it's awkward, but after that, you know, you get to know them. Like, I know them very well. The crew is still in contact, and it just becomes part of the team, really. And yeah, you don't even really notice they're there, so it's fine. And the camera was so much smaller than I thought. I thought they're going to be there with like 50 cameras, and they've still got that big fluffy boomy thing, but you know, it's going to be like massive. It's not at all.
And just talking about that as well, so obviously half the camera crew that were there, they would never have seen anything like that. So I wonder how it was on them, because I know if I was in that situation, I probably would not be calm as you. So how did you see them portray it?
I think they definitely went through a journey of seeing things, and I think for us it was actually in a way quite useful to see that, because we become desensitized to what we see, and their kind of wonder and amazement and their sadness sometimes was sort of watching them go on that journey to get used to even seeing blood. We did have one person that did one shift and couldn't come back, but they have very much a sort of pastoral aspect within the production company that are looking after them. But yeah, it's kind of with medicine and things like that, it's the experiences that you see and you go through are a shared thing that kind of bonds you and connects you as people in the moment, and you never lose that, because there's a connection. It's a weird thing, but it's a connection that's formed, and it's always there whether you're working with them on a day-to-day basis or not. So yeah,
fascinating. And when you're at shows, do you find that people, when they find out you're a doctor, want to ask things? Because
here we go, he's been waiting this whole time for this.
I've only got leeches with me.
Oh no.
I could have done with you. So last week I was flying to a show in Canada.
Yeah.
And I got 3 hours into the flight and I had excruciating pain. So I got on to the Dr. Google.
Yeah.
You know, the one that everybody uses.
Yeah, the one that went to medical school for 5 years and then trained for 20. Yeah, know him.
I decided I had kidney stones, and it was actually kidney stones.
Oh,
it was so
horrific.
Painful.
Worse than childbirth.
Well,
apparently.
I keep telling everyone, but no one believes me.
No, absolutely. Renal stones, dreadful.
Yeah.
Yeah, dreadful.
So I had to go to A&E when I got there.
Oh,
yeah,
nightmare.
It was bad. But yeah, do you find that when you're at shows that people come up and say, can you just have a look at this strange rash that I got last night?
Yeah, I do. and that's absolutely fine. And I get asked on, obviously, via the social media. I've got a relatively large social media following now, so I do get asked. I just always say, you know, if you're going to contact me on social media, you don't do that in place of going to, you know, A&E or a doctor. And I can't diagnose things over a Facebook message. I've sent a few people to hospital. I've certainly know that luckily I stepped in with a child that actually had a bleed in their brain. So I'm glad that they contacted me, but I'm not the first port of call. But if I can help in any way or signpost people to where they need to be, I am more than happy to do that. I always personally answer everything that's sent to me.
So you don't mind if people come up to you at a show?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So if anyone today has got any medical issues, Dr. Diane,
come see me. Come see me.
And we'll film it. I mean, why not?
It's grand. I don't mind if it's a lot of the stuff I get asked is about getting back to riding with injury.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just the same. My husband's here, and I'd just had major surgery, and I'd kind of been parked up in the middle of my barn with my horses either side, which were both recovering from spinal surgery, because I was lucky enough to have both of mine with kissing spine. We were all getting better together, and I had been told under no circumstances must you go into the stable.
Right.
He came into the barn, and I was on my hands and knees dragging my leg behind me because I was skipping out, because I couldn't stand the fact that the horse had pooed and it had to go. I couldn't sit there. So I'm just as bad as everyone else, but I know that I can give advice around getting back to riding, and you know, sort of, it's not just injury prevention.
Great. Have you got any medical things you want to ask, Bobby? Have you got any?
No, I mean, not, you know, on live. I'm good for a minute.
You're
yeah.
okay.
But one of the questions I would like to ask you is, obviously, when you do, you know, you're saving people's lives continuously, and that's so much pressure. But then coming down the centre line is also a lot of pressure. Do you feel, is it the same type of pressure, or is it completely different?
Oh, I wish, because if it was the same, I'd be amazing, wouldn't I? No, it's totally different. And I think it's because when I'm at work, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. It's fine. There's nothing really that's going to faze me. But when, you know, horses is my hobby, and, you know, I don't know everything, and now I've got a body that doesn't work. So no, I wish if you could bottle it and give it back to me to take down the centre line. I guess the only thing that it does help me with is that, no one dies if I ride a bad test, do they? So dealing with stuff afterwards, or if things aren't going as I want them to, no one's died. So actually, in the grand scheme of things in my life, that would be the worst thing that would happen for me if I went wrong. And if I go wrong in a dressage test, which I did at the Home International, no one died. So it helps me in that way.
And when you first started the career as being, a doctor and things, obviously you weren't this calm when you were starting. Surely everything was very nervous. The coping mechanisms that you used there, the techniques you used as you were younger, have you brought them into now with the riding to cope with your nerves and pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. And the horses helped me massively, and certainly over COVID. COVID was a really tough time for me. And coming home to the horses, and I used to come in, drop my bag, be handed a cup of tea and go straight out to the barn, and I would spend hours with the horses. But certainly from a mental health perspective, horses give you something that nobody else can, and they got me through what was a really, really difficult time.
I suppose you'd be on the front line, would you, during COVID?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And what was that like?
Oh, awful.
Because it almost seems like a lifetime away for us.
Yeah, even for us, we're still having spikes. So from a hospital perspective, we're still getting spikes. We've just gone down underneath a level to try and get people out of masks and things. I think at the beginning we knew it was coming, and I actually led the response for 2 hospitals, and we knew it was coming, and we could see that almost like Italy had fallen. It was almost like a tsunami that was coming our way, and we didn't know what was happening, and we didn't know when it was going to hit us. So we Italy went, then London fell, and then Birmingham fell, and I'm sort of local to here, so it was Shrewsbury, Telford and Stoke and Stafford Hospital. And it was like, when's it going to happen? And once it started, you're working and you're dealing with that patient, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. But you're doing it then. That was actually in some respects easier because you'd started. But I think the hardest thing as the leadership team through that as well was our staff were terrified, and they would ask me, will I kill my husband? Well, am I going to kill my children when I go home? I say, I don't know. I don't think so. We're going to do this, and this. But we not only had the responsibility of the patients and the families and the emotional toll of holding an iPad so somebody can see their husband die it's awful. I think we're all quite scarred, if I'm honest. They talk a lot in the press about moral injury, and I think everyone that worked through that period actually with the patients has got a degree of moral injury after.
And you were learning on the job as well, weren't you?
Yeah,
really
we didn't.
About it. You didn't know anything about
idea.
it. So you've got the pressure, so many ill patients coming in, and yet you still didn't know how to treat it. That must have been.
It was awful, and it didn't seem to be a particular age group. We have flu pandemics obviously every year. We had problems with flu, and we know that some of our more vulnerable patients and elderly and frail patients, or have got chronic illnesses, that they may well sort of fall to flu, and if it wasn't that, it would be something else. But these were young people. These were people in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and it was just, it was unbelievable.
Must be so tough.
Horses, that's why I kept saying to everybody, I did offer the horses out to a few people, and a few people did come to spend time with the horses. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
And thanks for everything you do as well with Beta and also with BD as well. Kind of driving that para scene up here, so thank you.
Grand, no problem. Thanks very much.
And we've got another couple of good interviews to come later on today.
Yes, we've got Danny Morgan to come, which will be really nice as well. And then we've got Lewis as well, which is really nice upcoming young riders. So I'm really quite excited to find out their journey.
Well, it's going to be a good day. You can join us live on Facebook and keep those questions coming in later on as well. For now, we take a short pause, though, and you can rejoin us a little bit later on here today at the LeMieux National Dressage Championships.